and amendments to Western Strategic Plan. This past week, or last week, it was passed at Senate but met with mixed reviews from students. What is your opinion on the new strat plan? And if you had a vote, would you have voted for or against it?
Thank you. If we could just start alphabetically, Mr. Benac. Benac. Sorry, can you reconfirm how? It's Benac. Benac, yeah. For the record.
Yeah, touching on the strat plan, I'm just going to come right out and say it. Had I been able to vote for or against the strat plan in its current inception, I would have voted no, and I'll tell you why. It's because I don't think it was given deliberation necessary. There were several drafts, but Senate convened last week, and after a very hasty vote, it was passed. That being said, now that it's passed, we're going to have to take a very close look at how it's implemented, and that's, I think, going forward with the USC is going to play a major role in making sure that overgoing the implementation of the strat plan, that student concerns are still being heard by administration. And then if it gets to the point where the strategic plan is being implemented and it's absolutely not in the interest of students and administration is pushing for things that are no longer in the interest of students, it's the obligation of the University Students' Council to, one, give student activists room and leeway to express their concerns, and two, to compound that with advocacy to Western internal administration to make sure that the strategic plan truly reflects the values and the beliefs of the students that it impacts.
All right, thank you. And just a quick reminder, if you'd like to respond to what the other person said, you can say, I'd like to respond to what they've said, and then you'll have 30 seconds. But otherwise, you can go right into your answer, Ms. Addison.
Cool. I will just go straight into my answer. So if I were either a student senator or I have to be a student senator to vote for it. So had I been a student senator this year, I would have voted for the strat plan. But with that, I would have ensured that I had been involved in the process and that I would vote for the strat plan before voting for that. So as the VP internal next year, like Alex said, it has been passed, so it's going to be the VP internal role to make sure that now the strat plan continues to be implemented in a way that is positive for students. I actually had the opportunity to go to the Senate meeting last week and witness both the motion as well as the protest that went on by students. And the research piece specifically, I know has been contended, but I think that the strat plan overall has some very, very good parts to it. I love the fact that they're asking professors to tie learning outcomes to their syllabuses. Syllabi? Is that the word? Syllabi. To make sure that students know what they're getting out of the course when they're going into it. So I think that there is some very, very strong parts of the strat plan, and that's what I would hope to do. And then in terms of the more contentious and specifically the research piece, I think that's where, as the VP internal next year, if I were elected, that's where I would have to get student feedback and really provide the direction and make sure that that is implemented in the most effective manner.
Thank you. All right. Any response, or can we move to the next question? All right. So, many students ask, or rather one person posed this question claiming many students ask, what more does the VP internal do than manage the peer support center downstairs? What would you like to do?
I think that's a fantastic question. The VP internal does a lot more than the peer support network. I see that really being the advocacy side of the portfolio, specifically at Western. So that's things like the team advocacy points that we put on our platform. It's looking at the student donation fund that I know Sam has started working on, and I hope to continue that next year. The advocacy piece, I think, is really the biggest other side of it, as well as the academic piece that we see through the different coordinators in the position with SAS and with learning services. So as important and essential as the peer support network is, there's so much more to the internal portfolio, and I would really like to take strong leadership on that, specifically the internal advocacy side next year.
Thank you. Mr. Benac?
Yeah, it's interesting because Emily and I don't really disagree. The internal portfolio is large and sometimes it's difficult to navigate, but at the end of the day, the idea behind the existence of the Vice President Internal is for students to have a strong executive level advocate that focuses on bringing student concerns to administration here at Western. So absolutely, the Peer Support Center is a large part of what the VP Internal does, just as the Academic Advocacy Branch is as well. But at the end of the day, the VP Internal is a student advocate first. And going forward, if I'm elected as Vice President Internal, as a member of Team Belman, I'd like to continue focusing on advocacy and making sure that student concerns are being heard, by administration, and not just being heard by administration, but being acted upon by an actively listening administration here at Western.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question, Mr. Benac will first respond. What do you perceive as the most exciting opportunity presented by Western Strategic Plan? Conversely, what do you see as the most troubling caveat?
Emily actually mentioned something, again, that I don't disagree with in terms of the strategic plan, which is, it has something to do with teaching quality in the strategic plan. I think there's a lot of opportunity within the strategic plan to make strides towards better teaching quality. And the strategic plan does address that quite well because the administration listened to the USC's advocacy this year and made adjustments in that regard. In terms of the greatest caveat or the greatest flaw that I see, it really is something that's biased for me because I come from FIMS, and I want to make sure the strategic plan is a positive step to take for all students at Western, no matter what faculty you are a member of. Whether you come from FIMS, arts and humanities, social science, I think the university should place a well-rounded emphasis on all the aspects of learning, and that includes the liberal arts, because the liberal arts are an essential part of coming to a post-secondary institution. It informs the civic choices that you make, it informs the kind of person that you are, and I think that's something that we really need to focus on going forward as well.
Thank you. Ms. Addison?
Can I re-ask the question?
Yes. What do you perceive as the most exciting opportunity in Western Strategic Plan, and what do you see as the most troubling caveat?
For that question, I will actually answer with the same answer for both parts. So I think the most interesting and the most exciting opportunity for Western students is their new focus on providing excellence. This was something that came up at the Senate meeting that I went to on Friday, and they talked about how they're redefining kind of, instead of focusing on the student experience as a whole, focusing on student excellence across the board. So at the Senate meeting, I agree with this. They talked about how that term can be very vague. What actually defines excellence? So I think we have a very unique opportunity as students and as student leaders next year, if we are elected, to really work with administration to define what excellence is. If it's teaching quality, exactly as Alex talked about, I agree with that, as well as every other part of the strategic plan. I think we need to really work to decide what excellence means and how that can be the most productive for students.
Thank you. Mr. Benac? Oh, sorry. Moving on to the next question. What do you think the relationship should be between the Vice President internal and faculty-specific administrators, for example, Associate Dean Academics? Ms. Addison?
Cool. As your own president, I have a very good working relationship with our team, and in that role, I do a lot with him to promote different events that they are doing, as well as to talk about student issues that are directly relevant to academics. If some of a student brings me a concern about a course that's going on that they're not happy with, I have the ability to bring that to the team. And I think that experience and that mentality would transfer over exactly to this. The deans deal with academics on a daily basis, and if we have student concerns, whether they're coming from our coordinator specifically in the academic portfolio, or they're coming directly from students, it's my role to bring that to the forefront with the deans to discuss what we can do to help students for the better.
Thank you. Mr. Benac?
There's an incredible opportunity for the Vice President internal to work with the deans with regards to academics. And I think one of the most important things is to really engage with faculty to maximize the effectiveness of our teaching staff. It's the Vice President internal's role as an advocate to push for better teaching quality at Western. And that's absolutely something that the Vice President internal can do in conjunction with the deans. And it's not something that you can do by walking in and saying, this is the way it should be. It's a collective understanding. It's an agreement that you come to with faculty about the nature of classroom experiences here at Western, and that's something that as Vice President internal I intend to do, if I'm elected.
Thank you. All right, the next question will be to Mr. Benac first. And it's, what do you consider to be the most pressing issue of the internal advocacy priorities for the coming year?
The most pressing issue I see going forward is the decentralized nature of the support systems here at Western. There are many different places for students to turn to for help at Western should they need it, and in many respects that is a good thing, but in some respects it's not necessarily a good thing. We have a number of supports on campus for students to go to It's just a matter of helping students find out where to go, and it's about maximizing our potential in terms of connecting students to those resources and making sure that those resources are as effective as possible. My number one priority, I think, if I had to pick one, is student mental health on this campus. This university is growing at an exponential rate. It's going to continue to grow, and it's not going to stop. And we need to make sure that administration is focusing on ensuring that welfare supports on campus grow at the same rate as our class sizes and as our faculty sizes. And that is, again, my number one priority going into next year. And it's a number one priority for Team Belman to make sure that mental health is a number one priority, not just for the USC, but for administration as well.
Thank you. Ms. Addison?
I completely agree with you, Alex. I just see it on a much broader spectrum. So I see the changing demographics of our university as well as the increase in population as being the most pressing issue for every single student on this campus. From there, like I said, things are changing. The services that we have also need to change with it. There's so many opportunities on this campus, and I think we've highlighted that in our platform across the board, from things like improving relations with athletics, improving relationships with clubs, and services in general. I think there's so much room to grow with the demographics as they're changing, so that we can link students to the services that we have and make sure that every student is able to connect with those resources no matter what they are or how they want to connect with them.
All right. Thank you. And the next question, big surprise, just as we threw it at the external candidates. First, Ms. Addison, what makes your priority more important than Mr. Benac's?
Do you mean my priority that I just outlined?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean my priority that I just outlined, or my
Yes.
priority in general? Cool. Like I kind of touched on, I think my priority is more relevant because it reaches to every single student with the reality that we're facing at Western. Things are changing and we're growing, and tuition's changing, and ancillary fees, everything is changing, and we need to grow with it, and we need to shape the way that the university goes along with it. So that's having a strong voice at the table and ensuring that we bring the issue of how our services are interacting with us to administration, and making sure that we're talking with students all the way along with that process.
Thank you, Mr. Benac.
I think our priority is personal. It resonates with students. Every single person in this room is going to know someone that has a mental health issue or has a mental health issue themselves. And it's something that we need to take a very serious look at. And Emily's not wrong in saying that we need to look at the overall structure of our university going forward, but that being said, there is something to be said for making sure that when you choose Western to be your school, we also provide the means for you to make it your home. And in that regard, mental health is the first and foremost priority of this team with regards to the internal portfolio next year.
Thank you. Mr. Benac, you'll actually be the first to answer this question as well. And it's, how would you change the slow, bureaucratic process of disseminating messages and information on campus? Think of the incredibly efficient poster process you had to go through recently with the USC protests. Mr. Benac?
Yeah, there's a ton of room for improvement with regards to the way that information is disseminated. Is the question referred to the USC specifically? Is that what it's about?
Not specifically, but you can interpret that way if you'd like.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's what the question is asking. And it comes back to something that we put in our platform, which is that the USC needs to just get better at communicating with itself. Not just that, but communicating with students. We need to make sure that we're engaging with students and giving them enough notice to make sure that they can attend awareness events, that they can attend all of the great programming that the USC puts on a weekly basis. In that regard, we need to push for a USC that just is better at communicating with students. It's better at being there for students, so students don't have to seek us out. So that we're heading to students and giving them the information that they need to make informed decisions on campus and to be actively involved in their campus community. And yeah, I believe that's my answer.
If I could ask you a question back, I guess it would be, I fully agree with the sentiment, but how do you actually hope to implement that? It's more than just saying that we need to be better, it's actually having a direction, having a plan, so that we can actually implement that. So I guess how would you do that?
You're absolutely right, and it's something that we put in our platform. We want to make sure that there are weekly newsletters going out to all commissioners and coordinators within the USC just on updates about, what you're working on that week. Maybe you don't necessarily have an event that week, but you want to communicate to the rest of the USC something that you're working on in the long term. We we just want to make sure that there are avenues there so that the departments are speaking to each other, that commissioners and coordinators within different portfolios are communicating with each other, and maybe making sure that commissioners and coordinators within, for instance, the internal portfolio aren't trying to do all their marketing and promotion in-house. Maybe they outsource that to the communication portfolio. It's just a matter of finding efficiencies and by communicating better with each other through something like a weekly newsletter.
Thank you. Ms. Addison?
So I want to answer the question with two pieces on my platform. So first, I want to talk about clubs. I know you're talking about posters specifically, but they go through the same process that we would have gone through. So clubs right now, we met with a lot of clubs during this process, and a lot of them have said that they struggle constantly with communicating with the USC for things as simple as poster approvals and event proposal approvals. I want to make sure that we're asking the critical questions of ourselves to see why that's happening and how we can improve that. Clubs are serving students on every single day on such a broad scope that I think that's an incredibly important way that we interact with students every day, and making that process easier for club executives is one of the first ways that we can help remove some of that red tape and some of that process. Another part, kind of on the other side of my portfolio, specifically with the Peer Support Network, is my Help Me Help You research initiatives. So it's about going and asking students who are coming to our events and being involved in our programs, and asking them what they're getting out of it, why they're coming, and how we can improve their experience. I want to make sure that students are getting the biggest benefit, and the way to do that is really to communicate well with them.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please do.
Yeah, I really respect what you said about your support network and engaging with students, and I think that's very valid. And I wanted to address what you said about the club system, because I agree with you in the sense that the commissioners and coordinators have to go through a lot of the same processes that club executives do in terms of poster approval and stuff like that. And so I was wondering if you could share any specific steps that you would want to take to make that system easier for club executives and commissioners and coordinators.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it has to do with, it's not called Student Life Department anymore, it's called SOS. And it has to do with them and the process for that, as well as also the Western Link. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from students about the effectiveness of Western Link and how it's really not the most effective communication system. So the contract for that is out next year, so our team wants to look into alternatives for that. And we have a couple ideas in the process already on how to make that communication easier between executives and the USC, so that it doesn't have to take as long, and then in terms that club executives can communicate better with their members. So online communication is a great thing.
So just an interesting little side note, the notion of we should do better actually came up in a focus group of a motto for this, an unofficial model for the speaker. We should do better, followed by an exasperated sigh was what seemed to test us with the focus group. So, fun fact. Next question, going to Ms. Addison first. How would you handle a student protest on campus?
Okay.
That's a good question. I think there's two different protests that we could see, and because of that, there's two different ways that we should handle it. If it's a calm, silent protest, such as the one that went on at the Senate meeting last week, I think it's students' right to have that freedom of speech and to be able to be on our campus for what they believe in. If it's something that turns into being discriminatory against another group of students, which I think some of it's violent, which I don't think really ever happened at Western, then we need to take a different approach, and that's when other groups can get involved. I believe in the fundamental values of freedom of speech on our campus, and if it's doing so in a way that's not hindering another student group, I think we need to support that and celebrate that.
Absolutely. Team Belman is 100% in favor of ensuring that the USC gives all student advocates and all student activists a space on campus to voice their concerns. And it is ultimately the obligation of the USC to make sure the campus is a safe space for students to share their concerns and to express themselves. Of course, Emily is absolutely right. Anything that turns into something that's discriminatory or, God forbid, violent, which again we don't think will happen, is something that we obviously do not support. But in terms of activism, it's an important part of the democratic process. It's part of society building. It's part of why we all came to this institution. It's part of the USC's responsibilities as an organization to make sure that student activism has a place to thrive on campus and grow on campus and remain on campus.
Thank you. Now the next question, for those of you who thought the environment stopped being a problem when the financial crisis hit in 2008, bam, it just came back with a boomerang. Can you elaborate on any kind of environmental sustainability initiatives that your slate has in store? How are we going to make Western a more
there's a lot that can be done on campus to make the school more environmentally friendly. It's a conversation that isn't often had at the administrative level, given the amount of attention that's been placed on the strap plan and mental health and all the other issues on campus. But there are things like looking into, we have battery disposal stations all across campus or in the UCC. It's a matter of becoming more efficient on campus, and we can do that by things like OWEEK. OWEEK it generates a lot of waste after the week is done, and it's a great program, and there's a room for us to improve it in the sense that we can investigate making it carbon neutral, which is something that a lot of universities and a lot of institutions are looking at making their events. We can institute a cleanup after a week, just to make sure that we are remaining environmentally conscious and we're making sure that our campus is a clean place.
Thank you, Ms. Addison.
So this is a place where we need to really work at empowering our coordinators. We have an Enviro Western coordinator, and they have a full team, and I see this as being a perfect place to help that group grow their initiatives. If we help them do their job, they work with different partners across campus, and they're really the experts on everything Enviro Western. So I want to be able to have a great working relationship upstairs, so that they can bring to me their lobbying points, their concerns, their questions, and be the VP internal. They have greater connections across campus that I can help them implement their goals and their vision for that service next year.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to wade back into controversial territory with the next question. Ms. Addison, you'll be the first to respond, and it's, what is your vision for the Peer Support Center? Do you have any ideas on how we can increase usage and satisfaction among students?
So I'll answer this in two parts. The first part with my vision, and the second part with my platform points I have on an internal specific media coordinator. So my vision for the space is it's quite simple. I think we need to have a mission statement for the space. The feedback that I've gotten and the experience that I've had with it this year from sitting on the standing committee that I sit on at council is that we really don't know what the space is necessarily. There's a lot of different opinions and different views, and that's fantastic. But with that, we need to work to really have a definition of what that space is, so that everybody going in knows what they're getting out of it. And then from there, it's working to promote the service to students. The center is there, and so is the network, and they provide amazing things, but I don't think the students always know what they provide or how they provide it. So having a specific coordinator in my portfolio to help me with promotions and help the center and the network with promotions, we'll be able to get more students involved and really reach out to everybody who's interested in what those coordinators and those services in the center have to offer.
Thank you, Mr. Benac.
This is something that's really close to my heart. I'm a coordinator in the Peer Support Center right now, and there is an incredible amount of potential to make the space something, it's going to sound so cliche, but something better, something more fulfilling for as many students as possible. The way I see the space going forward is really as a hub of student advocacy and, of course, student support. I work in the center right now, and I am almost never in my office. There's a ton of space down there, and there's a ton of space to make sure that we're offering more services and more relevant services to students from the Peer Support Center. There's an entire other side of the internal portfolio that's less discussed. It's called the Student Appeals Support Center that helps students navigate the appeals process. And as it is right now, they don't have space. I want to bring them into the space. I want to make them accessible to students. I want to invite other student advocates like student senators to use a rotating office space within the Peer Support Center so they can better connect with their constituents. I envision a space that is accessible to as many people as possible, and if that means that there are people that aren't comfortable physically going into the space, that works.
Can I ask a question now?
Yes, you may.
So I guess my question to you on that point exactly is, I think it goes back to my point of defining the space. I think you've pointed out a couple of interesting things by having other groups in the space. But I guess my question is then how do you see the space working? What do you see its true values being and its true resource being to students?
That's a good question. I see the space as being a little home on campus, and not in the sense that, people can come and take naps and all that kind of stuff, which is, there's merit to that, but at the same time, I see a space that tries to really be the ground game for the internal portfolio, that really connects students with the advocacy priorities of the USC. As a coordinator, I work to promote awareness and to advocate and to identify issues. And I think that we do that rather well, and I continue to see the space doing that. I'm open to seeing the space be a place where people can come and take a load off after a long day and sit with volunteering.
Oh man, just give me time, Tyler, over here. All right, moving along to our next question, Mr. Benac, you'll be the first to answer this one. Given the recent creation of the VP internal role, if you could describe your own ideal terms of reference, what would they be?
I would describe the ideal terms of reference for the Vice President Internal as the student's #1 internal advocate. That's the way I see the role moving forward. There's a lot of merit to having the Peer Support Center under the internal portfolio, as I just indicated, in the sense that it connects the internal portfolio to the students that we advocate on behalf of. But if there's an overarching principle that I would like to see for the internal portfolio going forward is that we are that internal advocate, that we are that person that stands up and says this is what students want and this is what students expect. And ideally that is the role that the portfolio will adopt going forward. It's going to be something that we can use to the benefit of all students at Western, to be a strong advocate, to make advocacy the #1 priority of the internal portfolio.
From where I'm sitting right now, I don't think that I can define what the terms of reference should be. Right now, I'm just a candidate. By the end of the year, if I was elected, I would have the full year of experience and have the full understanding and support from the previous executive to really define what that is. And that's what I would work on for the entire year, is defining what that means and how we can put that into policy. But apart from that, I think that the internal role has three very distinct parts. It's advocacy, it's education, it's support. And apart from that, I think I know I will work with the entire year to define how those three translate into the role and translate to being the most effective outlet for students to benefit from this role.
All right, thank you. The next question, Ms. Addison, you'll be the first to respond. You've both brought up mental health as a priority. However, it's clear that funding for essential services is hard to come by. Do you have any strategies for increasing student access to mental health services that don't involve increased funding or hiring new professionals?
So on our platform, we talk about working in the summer months to both streamline the different committees and different groups that deal directly with mental health on campus, as well as doing our own research to see how students interact with the different services that are available. And then going forward from there, we'll implement hopefully a strategy and a way to improve access. I've talked to a couple of students directly about this, and a lot have said that the services on the broad sense are quite accessible, they're quite anonymous, and they're there, but they do still need to be put out there more so that students know where they are and know how to access them and know what their options are. It's not a simple discussion. It's really about different options and different outlets to connect with. So we want to work throughout the summer to define what that really looks like, so that when we start back in September, we're able to bring a solution forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Improvement doesn't necessarily equal increased fees. Improvement can be as simple as looking at what we have right now and finding efficiencies, streamlining that process. On our platform, we have stated that we will continue to advocate for the creation of a Dean of Students or a Vice President of Students, a Western administrator that will have supervision of all departments and all services that address student welfare. And the reason that we're pushing for this continued initiative is because we strongly believe that there are so many efficiencies that we can find within the framework that we are currently operating. There are, as I said at the beginning of this debate, so many different resources on campus and so many different places for students to go. Inevitably, there will be overlap. And we think that a Dean of Students will be able to consolidate all of our resources and start pointing out things like, hey, STC, you do this thing, President's Counseling does this thing, and they do it a little bit better than you do. Maybe you can teach each other, or maybe we can find a way to consolidate our efforts and maybe consolidate our resources. It's about getting creative with how we interact with students. It could be about shifting to more preventative measures than addressing student concerns after they get in line.
All right. Okay, moving along to the next question. Upon becoming the Chief of Campus Police at Western, John Carson said that he had no regrets about the 1995 HIPAA wash crisis. a police raid on a First Nations protest overseen by Carson, in which one of the demonstrators, Dudley George, was killed. What are your thoughts on this matter?